Hi, I'm John DeDakis, and you're one-to-one with me, and I'm one-to-one with my friend Allison Mondel. Allison is, get this. She is a reformed self-critic turned transformational voice coach. She's the founder of the Sacred Voice Studio. It's a holistic voice coaching practice that helps singers dissolve their fears and confidently connect with their inner voice. And she's also a teaching artist and director of EYA, the Ensemble for Medieval Music, which is an award-winning women's vocal ensemble. It's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. All things considered.
Yeah. Are you guys holding up all right?
Holding up fine. And, an incredible learning curve for everybody about how to be and how to, I think this time has really been a mirror personally of my identity. Who am I when I'm all alone here with my family?
Well, help me understand, because you self-identify as a reformed self-critic. Tell me what you mean by that. Take all the time you want.
Well, I know it's sort of glib, but I think being a very musical person, being an artist, going through the crucible that is music conservatory and pursuing a professional music career or singing career just puts you under the microscope all the time. Being a person who's also extremely creative, I'm constantly needing to bring things into the world. But much of my journey, my artistic journey, my singing journey, had been eclipsed by just, frankly, the overthinking critical mind.
And what do you mean by
child
that?
Right here. What do I mean by that? This constant sort of inner dialogue that's not good, that's not acceptable. You can't have this come out into the public.
And where does that come from? Where does that come from?
Where does that come from? Partly my personality, my hardwiring. Certainly it comes from the voices that we have from our teachers, from our colleagues, from society about what standards of quality there are, especially when you get into a field that's pretty cutthroat and that has very exacting standards, which it should, frankly. I have very exacting standards. And I think, think about hardwiring, how most of us, I think, have high standards of excellence for ourselves. We miss the mark all the time, but when it came to my singing and my creative output, that was an astronomically high standard that I was just setting myself up to always fall short of,
And you say you went to the music conservatory. Where was this and when?
This was the Lange School of Music, which is a small conservatory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it was a place, so this was in 1999. It was one of the few places in the United States that you could study early music, that you could get a degree in early music performance. And this was something that I knew that I was bound to do. And it really all worked out that I was headed in that direction, and I was going to this school.
And where did that interest come from?
Well, it all sort of, it came about in, listening and singing as a student in high school. But then I was 19 and I remember it. Do you ever have these thunderbolt moments in your life when you just have a crystal clear image of where and when you were? And it was, this thunderbolt came when I heard the music of Hildegard von Bingen for the first time. Hildegard was a 12th century. Yes. Well, for your audience who may not know the magic of Hildegard, she was a 12th century abbess and visionary and mystic, and wrote some of the most extraordinary music. There are not enough superlatives to talk about Hildegard.
So
And
you had that interest, and then I would imagine in order to get into that conservatory, that must have been a pretty high bar to begin with.
Sure,
But
of course.
But you did it.
Yes.
So once you were able to accomplish it and get in, then doesn't that have any kind of, doesn't that add confidence and encouragement and make it possible for you to, to do that without the self-critic?
Sort of.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like the universe put the wind in your sails, and you're like, okay, this is the track I'm walking now. It feels confidence building, sort of. It also is, okay, what do I do now? How do I show up? How do I measure up to other singers too? And there's a lot of expectation, certainly for myself, and also stepping into a first year of anything when I was so green. I didn't know anything, and it showed.
But that's how you grow, and that's how you learn.
Of course.
And so, was there a point? And forgive me because I'm voraciously curious. And if I go in an area you don't want to go, you don't have to answer. But self-criticism. I mean, that can be a real trap. But as you say, anyone who has high standards, especially for themselves, that's a goal to shoot for, but it's also a trap. And so was there I hate to use the word rock bottom, but was there sort of a moment where you had to have this stern in the mirror talk with yourself about, where you're going to go with this and how you're going to handle imperfection when perfection is the goal?
Yes. There was that moment. It happened much later.
Really?
A few years ago. When I just felt so upset with myself for all of the emotions that were just running amok. Emotions. I love how my title says reformed self-critic, but the emotions.
There are other titles. You're not just this. You're much more multifaceted than that.
Thank you. But it was much later in my career when I was just feeling so upset all the time. I felt this sort of spikiness, and it went against the grain of what I define as my true nature, which is peaceful and harmonious, and creative and excited and curious. So I could see the disconnect, and I just felt, I had a moment. I was walking down the crypt of the National Cathedral, and I was walking to my studio, and I thought, I am so sick and tired of these thoughts.
Yeah.
That's it. And I threw down my gauntlet. I'm like, that's it. We're done here. Time to heal.
Whoa.
And it was profound, and it was important. And what happened after that was exploding life. Just all kinds of amazing things happened.
Well, and what you're describing is not really unique to music. I mean, writers go through the same thing. I think anybody who is in anything having to do with art or performance or even just living life, goes through these same kinds of things. So once you had that moment of I need to change, and you say sort of this explosive, I don't know, were they epiphanies? How do you describe the balance between the head and the heart? Because you describe a lot of emotions churning, and emotion. I mean, people have always said to me, well, follow your heart. Well, if I'd followed my heart, I'd be on death row. So, so how do you balance that head-heart thing? The emotions that are churning, yet, your rational mind that says, no, don't kill that guy.
Right. Of course. I think it would be wise to define heart in this
Okay.
case.
The floor is yours,
And by
ma'am.
that I mean, following that epiphany, it became clear that the mind was actually the sort of I don't want to use your death row inmate metaphor there, John, but to me, and this is also how all of my voice training sort of flipped around too, and the way I approach singing was that it's through the mind that we get ourselves into these snarls.
Right.
That it's through that ego mind that we get so caught up, and that the heart is obscured, it's closed, it's eclipsed. So in this case, I guess I'm saying to not equate heart with emotion.
Okay.
Heart, capital H, heart, in the metaphysical sense, is connected with that innermost self. That
soul?
Which is connected.
Would soul be a better word?
Absolutely. Yes.
So you learned to access the real you, the soul.
Yes.
How does one do that?
Oh, I actually think it's pretty simple, but not easy, as they say.
Ooh.
And I think the simple answer is it's actually your intention. Like, I'm making a decision to connect with this part of myself. And it may not be easy to work through all the layers that have grown over all of that undergrowth, if you will.
Sure.
But it doesn't go away. It's there. It's you. So how to access it? It's you decide to. And then what happens? I think of them as mini miracles. These little moments where the undergrowth sort of falls away and you start to gain more clarity of mind, a more embodied sense of yourself. I'm in my body versus in my head. I feel like I'm just a more united, harmonious human being. That then, thinking about that self-critic piece, it's like all I can do, I was so myopic. All I could do is think about everything that was wrong versus,
right.
How fascinating. I'm getting really stuck right there.
Right.
What's really happening here?
It's almost like stepping out of yourself to observe yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. Becoming the observer. And everything that we're talking about right now became the model for singing. Because my lens is through singing and being in instruments. It's like, wow, all of a sudden, all of these concepts started crystallizing because I had that stance of observer versus feeler and gnasher of teether.
Okay, so when you're able to bring that objectivity, that kind of rights the ship and helps you stabilize
and gain clarity. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
absolutely.
And yet, well, then how do you do that, or how do you then deal with the self-criticism, or at least trying to maintain those high standards? Does it make it easier to maintain those high standards, or does it result in it's good enough?
Both. Because I still have, yes. Let me give you an example. So, especially during this time of COVID, when so many performing artists are having to absolutely get in front of a camera and sing, and sometimes that's live and sometimes that's pre-recorded. So listening to myself, maybe let's say 5 years ago, listening to myself on a recording, a finished recording, even a finished mastered recording, was still enough to send me spiraling into a place where I couldn't sing for a week because I was so upset. Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
But
well,
now,
normal. That's normal, though, isn't it?
Thanks, John.
I would think so. I mean, there have been times when I haven't written for a week,
Yeah, perhaps. It's hard to know. I can't get into everybody's head. It always feels like so extreme.
Well, but I mean,
But
what's helpful is to know how you navigated it, because then if
yeah,
somebody is going through the same thing, what you're saying may or may not be helpful, but at least it worked for
I
you.
understand. I understand. So to be able to offer that context for someone else who might be listening, yes, I hope that seems relatable.
Okay.
But the piece then, fast forward into, this current time, as we all have to get up in front of people, I
Hmm.
still feel, that impulsive sort of lurch backwards, like, oof, I have to get up in front of people.
Right.
I love performing. Don't get me wrong. I love performing. But to be in front, to be recorded where you cannot always control the circumstances, it's
Right.
so much easier. It's just easier. And I have led Facebook Lives, for example, where I've been singing. I did an entire performance on a Facebook Live and I dropped the whole middle section of a song. I made the biggest mistake of my life. But
Jeez.
after it was over, I'm like, okay, well, that happened.
Right.
I don't,
Right.
I don't, I don't have the emotions that are tied up into that anymore.
That
So
must that must
it
be a tremendous breakthrough.
indeed, it is a tremendous breakthrough.
Let's well then let's move on to your next definition, and that is that you're a transformational voice coach. So I would
Mm,
presume that a lot of what we've been talking about is what you do on a daily
yeah.
basis or on a regular basis. So what is it
Mhm.
that you do?
So what I do, I started out as a singer. I became a voice teacher. That then through this whole journey of rediscovery, of letting go of all of that negativity, this bubbling under the surface became much more apparent. And as I was working with my students and using myself as the guinea pig too, of seeing through this process of reclaiming my own voice, of letting go of all of that negative criticism, I started becoming aware that my physical body was responding to this emotional healing. This is something that people do all the time.
In what
But
way
again, for me,
responding? In what way?
here's a perfect example. So being able to, I'm gonna just dive into the deep end for a sec. When I came back from my pregnancy after I gave birth to my little one, who's now 4, I had a really pretty terrible time post-birth. And I had a C-section and I was at that low ebb. My body felt broken. I felt totally out of my body. And then I developed some pain in my diaphragm. I, fast forward, came into the work of a breathing coach. And I dove into this breathing process and I started to recognize, oh my God, I have a diaphragm, your breathing muscle. And I had been a singer for 40 years and had never really understood this.
Huh.
What was happening was, as I was regaining the access and the flexibility of my breathing muscle, all of these emotions started getting churned up.
Mhm.
And here's really where it gets interesting. That I felt this emotional healing was on my doorstep. And it was connected with the middle of my body. It was connected with that identity and the worthiness of me, of my voice. And so it was through this really healing of old wounds, let's put it that way,
Mhm.
that literally the next day, John, I started singing and I'm like, what's happening?
Wow.
And the tension that was in my jaw and in my tongue, which classical singers know all too well,
Mhm.
left. It left. And I thought, that's interesting. What's really going on here? And it started helping me put all these connections together. And so it's through this personal transformation, this release of these negative thoughts and understanding how our thoughts are interacting with our physical body, specifically our voice, that once we recognize that, when we flip around our singing from the inside out versus the outside in, we are able to craft something that is so much more deeply creative and unique. And I love the word harmonious, but harmonious with ourselves.
What you're saying and what you're describing really sounds like it really is applicable more than to just music. I'm thinking of someone, let's say, who has a severe stutter.
Of course.
So, I mean, do you deal with people who have those kinds of issues as well?
Not in that exact example. However, I would open the sort of tent to include any person who wants to sing, not just musical people, because there are people that come to me and they're like, I have wanted to sing since I was a child, but I've never opened my mouth. Mm-hmm. And there are people that have had deeply traumatic experiences with their singing. Mm-hmm. And we get closed off. So it's finding a way then to peel away the layers so gently and respectfully mm-hmm. that we start to understand why our voice becomes withheld and how we can then release it.
It sounds then really what you're talking about is psychology. I mean, are you a psychologist, or is that some of the stuff you bring to the table?
For any psychologists or therapists who may be listening, no. But I've even had someone say it sounds pastoral.
Sure.
It's the kind of work that is absolutely looking at the deeper layers of the self and how our voice is such a reflection of ourself. That how can we not look at these components that are, directly related to making sound, as far as I'm concerned, with me as the coach holding space for that. A person, a singer who's like, I'm having a hard time, but I have this thing inside me that is yearning to be released. So being able to hold that space and say, okay, let's figure this out,
Here's a question that I just thought of, and that is that what you're describing is sort of a physical release of tension that allowed you to sing well better than you thought you ever could. And I'm wondering if there's a connection, and I don't really know the answer to this, and maybe it's not answerable, but do you feel that there's a connection not just between that, being able to objectively look at yourself, getting in touch with your inner being and the truth of who you are, does that, do you think, also have an effect in terms of the message one delivers when they speak? Because when you're singing something that's already written down. But for a writer or for a person who does public speaking or just in terms of our own relationships with other people, is there a connection, do you feel, between that insight that you get and in terms, not just in terms of the physical relaxation and ease, but in terms of the content of a message that we then start to send when we are in conversation with someone? I'm not sure I'm explaining that very well.
I understand completely. Yes.
Well, that makes one of us.
Absolutely.
Really? I mean, in what way? Have you observed that people have actually been better communicators?
Oh, yes, 1000%. So one of the things two components that I would offer as in response, which is really part A is the creative process. So if we think about creativity, this wellspring for any human being on the planet, we're talking about the flow of creativity that is not just relegated to the mind. It's the whole person. Where do we source that from? In my opinion, the heart center, which is deeply connected with so much more beyond that.
It's
Beyond
transcendent,
just us.
I would imagine. Transcendent, is that a good word?
Indeed. Indeed. So when we have, we've sort of caught that creative flow, the current, what happens next is, for me, creativity is accessing this higher level of mental activity. So it's not just me coming up with words to put down on a piece of paper. And I write some too. So where does that stem from? It's from my intuition. It's learning to trust that my mind is enfolded, it's enveloped in all of me, in all of you, in a united self. So then part B is actually now creating the intention of what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example with singing because, hello, that's what I do. But for me, when I'm singing a song, I'm communicating. We're talking about communication here. Right. I want to make sure that I am so deeply connected with what I am saying, the import, the meat of the thought or what I'm trying to express. Whether that's I love you or damn you or what have you.
Right.
That when I actually use not just my mind to say, I love you, but I love you. It's really connecting with something that's deeper.
Yeah. It
knits everything together. And for me, that energy that's coming through is look at your face. You can even tell. You felt that, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I had to go Cindy watching.
You receive it. Our audience receives it. It completely shifts and adds depth and texture to what we're trying to communicate. And that I think is one of our gifts as a human being, is our ability to communicate. Mm-hmm. It's a softer approach, that's for sure. It's relying on this, our creativity, our intuition, and our mind. Well, putting them all together.
Another thing that defines you is you are the founder of the Sacred Voice Studio. So I would imagine that at the Sacred Voice Studio, you do some transformational voice coaching. Just a hunch.
It's a good hunch. It's true. It's true. And it's, taking all of that experience of having gone through the fire of what it means to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And then to have this utterly eye-opening experience of how we can be overcome by all of the negativity and how that affects our singing. And not only is what's on the other side of that more freedom, yes. More confidence, oh my God, yes.
Wow.
But then this sacred voice piece. And so this is then what has been evolving, which is what is behind our voice. What's behind what's coming out
right.
and
right.
coming is, speaking to you. And I call it the sacred voice. It has other names, the inner voice, our source, our soul.
So it's really it's not just because you mentioned you were at National Cathedral, but I think what you're saying is, this is not just sacred music that you're talking about.
No, indeed.
So make that distinction between the sacred voice and sacred music.
So the sacred is that which is related to the divine.
Okay.
That which is in us, which is related to the divine, which is divine. It's just so beautiful. The music could be anything. The words could be anything. It could be our conversation. It's, I think with regards to singing, it's having the vision for our voice, the vision for our personal mode of self-expression, be connected with that which is sacred within us.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And so that really leads to my next question, which is, can anyone be taught to sing? Is that a yes? Well, look, you probably know the story. I mean, the way Cindy and I met, I joined the church choir just to get involved, and she became the new choir director. And that was 43 years ago at I don't know, St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Madison, Wisconsin. And look, she married me because I'm no threat musically. She says there are other qualities, but I know that as far as music, I'm not on her level at all. And I mean, I'm the kind of singer, and it was a small choir, and I sang bass, and I had to have somebody really strong sitting right next to me who really could hold the tune, singing in my ear. Otherwise, I was hopeless.
Yes. Sounds familiar.
Well, I mean, and here's another. This actually applies. It's not so much to singing, but it does relate to what you were saying in terms of the confidence and that inner connection. I mean, I'm a drummer. I play rock and roll, which goes way back. But my son James plays drums professionally, and so he was visiting us in D.C. and we went to a jazz club, and they had an open mic thing, a jam session. And I said, James, are you going to play? And he goes, no, I should have listened, because I went up there and I played, it was 4/4 medium. It was, nothing fancy. And a couple of guys got up there, and horn players, and I discovered that they just played a gig at the Kennedy Center. And, and they called a song. I had no idea what I was doing. It was way over my head.
It's amazing. Yes.
You're in trouble when during the song, the house drummer goes, I'll take over. And so here I am trying to, hold the beat and hand off the sticks to the guy. And I learned, I went to a jazz workshop that Paul Piper runs in Fairfax, Virginia, and he puts together these jazz combos, and you play together. And jazz it's constant failure because it's ad-libbing, it's soloing. And I still haven't had that breakthrough moment where I've been able to get out of my head. So, but
bingo.
How do I do
that?
How do I do that?
How do you do that? Okay. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. I mean, you talk about rhythm in the drums. Rhythm, it's very hard to think rhythm. Actually, that's not true. It's easy to think it. It's easy to overthink it. But we feel rhythm. Rhythm is felt. You feel it. When you dance, you don't think 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You might, if you're doing a routine, you might. Okay. But I had a really strong training in rhythm, and it's something that it trips you up when you start overthinking it. Right? Okay. So the larger question is, how do I get out of my head? And as you were also saying too, 43 years ago in Wisconsin, when you were singing in your future wife's choir, I can't keep my pitch, right? So there's I'm gonna break this down into 2 parts. Okay. So the first part is that I'm gonna save the best for last. So the first part is, why do we get tripped up in the first place? And the second part is my particular solution. So the first part, the tripping up, the overthinking. So when we get into this loop of thinking, and I'm going to give you the example. John, would you prefer the example of the singing or the drum playing?
Well, selfishly, the drum playing, but I would like to talk about singing too.
Okay. I mean, they're totally related. So I'll do my best. I'm not a drummer, but I play some instruments, and it can really mess with you. So like the piano.
Yeah.
So
Percussion.
being in your head, what happens, and I especially have learned this through my own singing, but also through my own experience playing other things, and also being a human being. When we are overthinking, we are disconnected from ourself in the present moment. And so often when that happens, we pull all of our energy up here into our mental space, our mental sphere. And the body is totally disconnected. It's like we're floating heads. So you're sitting there, at the club, like doing your thing, and you don't probably even know what your arms are doing because they're getting very strange messages, which is, I can't, I don't know, what, ooh. So here you're running a program, which is probably, I can't, I don't know how, I'm embarrassed, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And then your very, very obedient self is like, okay. So we're manifesting a hot mess. It sounds like it was really uncomfortable. I'm sorry.
Well, and one of the things I've noticed as well is when I'm doing a fill or doing a 4-bar solo, one of the things that happens is that there's that split second where you're going, "What's next?" and you slow down.
Yes.
And and that's death. That's death for a jazz concert.
For a drummer, yes, I can see that, and it happens all the time for singers too. Really? They slow down or they stop. So what is happening? Yes, it's like that time-lapse video, like, what's going to happen?
It's just a nanosecond.
It could go this way or this way.
Yeah.
A nanosecond that just takes you. So that time lag is absolutely your thinking, right? And I already mentioned you're not connected with the body. And so the body is just hanging out. It's waiting. And I do feel like we have a decision in that moment to either trust or not trust. And when you don't trust, then you get that awful time lag, right?
Well, what is it you're trusting in?
Yourself.
Oh, that.
Your intuition, which is, so if you felt like, as we look at all the artists that we love, like they're so easy. It's so natural. It's flowing through them, right? To trust thyself, that what is coming through you is worthy enough for the audience and for these other guys and for my beautiful wife and my stand partner or whomever I'm singing with. That it's okay, that what is going to come out is not going to be a failure or terrible, or I will, and believe me, it gets kind of hairy, I won't be punished, I won't be rejected. There's all of these other elements that get folded into that microsecond of choice. Am I going to stay in this moment and let something awesome happen, but I don't know what it is, or freak out? And then, oops. And we know, I don't know about you, John, those are the moments I regret the most. When I didn't trust myself. Right. When I pulled back instead of leaned in.
Okay. Well, we have some people who are on the chat who are weighing in.
Yes.
And,
oh my gosh.
I'll put it up on the screen. Okay. Lars Savano says, everyone can sing. He says, I know I hosted karaoke shows for 30 years, and I helped many people overcome their fears and sing publicly. For many, it was a life-altering connection with themselves. So it sounds like you would agree.
Oh my God, of course. Yes.
Well, then here's the challenge. And this actually is a little scary to even suggest, but would you be able to, could we try harmony? But could
yeah, of course.
Because when Cindy and I do, happy birthday to the kids or whatever, and I do the bass part, but it's like, it's anybody's guess what's really going to come out. So if we'll see if this works. This could be where everybody tunes out, or this could go viral and it'll be on the Daily Show tomorrow. So here's my suggestion. And I'm just we have no idea how this is going to go, but let's do happy birthday. and
Okay.
you do the melody and I'll do the bass part. And
Okay.
we'll just try it straight first, and then I will probably go off the tracks, and then maybe you can rescue me.
Do you
Or
want me to give you well, I was going to say, do you want me to give you the part B
yeah,
before
give
you
me
sing?
yes, 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 yes. Give me
Yeah.
the part.
Wouldn't that be
Yeah,
useful? So the
give me that.
part B, which is how do I get out of my head? For me, you anchor your awareness in your heart, in your source. That's it. That voice that's not going to be like, ooh, what are the pitches? This is the thing. So like all of this sound is coming out of your mouth, but we can't use our ears and we can't use our brains, which is awful news.
Right.
So I am actually going to like imagine that I'm centering my awareness here. And I'm going to sing happy birthday, okay? But here's the deal. I want you to practice.
Okay.
Imagine that you're centered here, like all of you is just, and that your voice is just going to come out of your whole body, not your mouth. And please
Okay.
don't think the pitches. Okay.
Well, and here's another thing, and I don't know if this makes a difference. I'm not able to hear myself in my earphones. I can hear you, but I can't hear myself. I can sort of
Okay.
tell the vibrations, but I don't know if that makes a
So
difference.
what you can do, I want you to practice staying centered. And yes, you can listen to me, but try not to wait for me.
Okay.
Just be with me.
Okay.
Just be with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my God. I can't wait.
So what's going to
Can we
happen?
start here? Do you want me to start?
Yeah,
Mhm.
is that good?
Okay. Come back here.
Mm, mm.
Now find that you can just take a breath.
Taking a breath.
And start. Good. That's it. Yes. Good job. Okay.
Okay, great. Let's go on
Ready?
then. While we're ahead.
Are you
No,
ready to
really. Go
sing a
on.
happy
Yeah, go ahead.
birthday?
Happy
Okay, I'll get started.
birthday.
All right, ready? Here we go. Happy
Happy birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
I went down. Is that okay?
That's okay. You can do whatever you want because it's your show. But I'm curious, did you start at the beginning or at the end?
I don't know. You're the teacher.
I'm not sure. But do you see how you felt a little nervous, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm good. And all of a sudden, I want you to try again. I want you to gently exhale. Come back to your center and now inhale. Good job.
I've been breathing for a long time.
I know. But it's difficult when you have a big job to do, like sing in public. That's a big
True.
job.
Yeah.
And so part of the process is we learn how to function without being so caught in our thoughts.
Okay.
It's new. It feels weird, right? It feels
This
different.
is the thinking. My thought is, what am I going to
Yes.
sing? Or what, am I going to go
Oh,
up? I'm like, I
yes.
know happy birthday, but am I going to say it?
Yes.
Am I going to do the bass part or what?
Well, if you'd like, I think that would be nice because it was a great idea to harmonize, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's,
Yeah.
Cindy would say, not in the execution of it. Because she's a professional musician too.
Oh, she's amazing.
Well, yeah, and I don't measure up to her standards.
You don't measure up.
No.
However, here's the coach in me that says, you still have a voice, right?
I do.
So it's when we are constantly holding ourselves up to other people's standards. Yes, I don't sing at the Metropolitan Opera. That's not for me. I know singers of fantastic skill. I can't sit here and say, oh, I'm not worthy. I can't do that. I have to trust my own voice here. And so I love that you guys met in the choir. I love that. So isn't it a beautiful sort of moment to now say, you still had a voice in that choir. And the person that was in charge of the choir loves you unconditionally. No matter what was coming out in the bass section, which was probably frustrating for her. So, right?
Definitely some dissonance there.
Fair enough, John. It's so common, but I think what I'm hearing is the trust piece. So,
And not trusting myself. Not trusting myself. Right.
I'm saying to you, I think this is a really important way that we access our creativity.
Okay.
Is that we can't hold our hands up against the dam, as a dam of that creative flow.
Right.
Because we're missing out. We're missing out.
So we need to let it out.
And we
need to let it out.
trust.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
And to be able to find a way to anchor our awareness that is not going to be so tripped up all the time by A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These are the reasons why this is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever.
Okay.
Does all of that make sense?
It does. It makes intellectual sense, but let's see if it works.
Okay. Are we still going to do this?
Yeah. What do you want me to do? Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll make it happen.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I would like you to say, I'm going to have you practice speaking once before singing, okay? Because I know you're comfortable speaking.
I've done it a few times.
Let's face it. I know you have. Singing is it's a real amplification of ourself. So it can be thorny. Mm-hmm. So I'd like you to practice becoming centered in your heart.
Okay.
And saying something like, hi, my name is John. Something simple.
Hi, my name is John.
Oh, you sang it. I love it. I was just going to have you speak it. But look, you're all glowy. That's great. I love it. So that didn't seem so scary, and you let something kind of cool happen, which was what just came out was kind of fun, right?
Yeah,
it was. Joyful. Yeah, it was fun.
Bit. Okay.
So there was no pressure to like reproduce pitches.
Right. That's true. That's definitely true.
So can I have you try something? Can you say, hi, my name is John.
Hi, my name is John.
Great job.
Okay.
Right? It just kind of came out.
It did. Yeah.
It just kind of came out. I noticed a little like microsecond of hesitation at the beginning.
Sure.
Right? But you moved through it.
I did.
Right? You did. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's to be able to trust yourself enough to go there, to go into it.
And do you have people, when you, I was able to, I think, sort of match pitch. But do you have some people who just can't at all? And are you able to help them?
Yeah.
And it probably takes a little longer.
Sometimes. Everybody's different, I'd say. And I think that pitch, this whole conversation about matching pitch, which I know trips up a lot of people, it is absolutely connected with all of that overthinking. Like the trip with playing the drums, keeping the rhythm, to me is sort of similar. It's not, it's a different skill, but it's sort of the tripping up comes from the same place, which is the hesitation. But specifically for pitch, I think this is what happens a lot. People try to think the pitch, like if here is the pitch, I'm trying to think it and make it come out, versus trusting a very, very highly evolved part of my brain that communicates with my vocal cords to create the exact configuration for that frequency. That's not our job. It's involuntary, right? It's not our job. But when we make pitch our job, it gets tricky. Get in the way. Get the time lag. And then the larynx is like, whoa, the vocal cords, they're not in sync. It's wobbly. It's super wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I hope
Yeah,
that's
it
helpful
does.
for anyone that's listening. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on, because one of the other things is you're the director of AYA, this ensemble for medieval music. And what I'd like to do is, I'm new to this whole live stream thing, but I believe that I'm able to let people hear about a 2.5 minute clip of what what AYA does, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So
Cool.
This will take a minute, because I'm the technical director. I'm the director. I book the guests. It's a very low budget operation here. So hold on. So let's see. Hit screen share. Go to the YouTube. Share audio. Okay. In 3, 2, 1, go.
When in disgrace with fortune and man's arms, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and troubled at heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate. Wishing me loved on my fletched like him with thanks possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's soul, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself are most despising. Happily I think on him, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, from sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such well praise, that then I come to change my place with kings.
Wow. That was very powerful. Hold on. Let me stop the screen, and we'll come back to the two of us. That's incredible. Tell me more about the group, and I mean, where did you record that? Were you in a cathedral?
No, we were at the Baltimore War Memorial, which is like a cathedral.
Okay.
A huge, vast room. The song is actually it's a new song, and it's by composer Richard Einhorn. And AYA is a women's ensemble, professional vocal ensemble. The full title is AYA Ensemble for Medieval Music, but we're always working in music from all different eras and genres in our performances. And that Shakespeare sonnet setting was a real gem, and it was just so lovely for the three women's voices. So that's one of our favorites.
Who are the other people in your group?
Kristen Dubenion-Smith is our mezzo soprano, and Crossley Hahn is the soprano. And we all met here in Washington, D.C., and we all met singing together at Washington National Cathedral. So they were celebrating our 10th anniversary too this year. It's an interesting year ahead.
Wow.
But there's some amazing, amazing offerings that we have this season. So lots, we're hoping to build our
will
community.
you be able to do this during COVID?
We're planning all virtual events. We are planning to do a live streamed concert, but we'll be spread out. The three women in a really big, beautiful resonance space. So this is our hope if we are able to.
How can people find the group online? I'll just type it in here and
yes, it's eyaensemble.com. Or Facebook or Insta.
eyaensemble.com. So let me put it up on the screen. EYA ensemble.com.
That's right.
Correct? Okay. So
you're my
editor. So you see how low budget this is. And how can people get in touch with you, the voice studio?
You can come. Yes, the website, the Sacred Voice Studio. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I often have events. I also have a private Facebook group, the Sacred Voice Circle, that I often will do special events or do challenges or giveaways. So there's all kinds of cool stuff that's sort of connected with my studio. But I also do one-on-one coachings, and I just love helping people discover all of their awesome potential, like you, John.
Well, this has been such a treat. I mean, I love talking to you, and this is really the first time we've had a chance to really talk one-on-one about something that's so near and dear to you, because most of the times when we're together, it's a bigger group, and there's not the opportunity to go one-to-one. So this has been a treat for me. And thank you. And is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
I just want to hold up anybody that's listening that feels like they don't know what to do with their voice. I just want to say there's just everyone can sing. It's truly remarkable, all the potential we have within us, and it's just finding the right way to access all of that. So it's there. It's all possible.
Good. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, John. It's my